when you look at NIL and the marketing aspect of it, businesses, yes, if you have the top athlete, that's great because they probably are a more notable name. At the end of the day, like athletes that have a personality, that have a presence, some form of identity beyond their sport, those people that are able to kind of show their personalities and that can show their interests, the things that they do outside of their sport. That's what resonates with people and what builds community is kind of, people being able to express themselves.
Sports taught you how to compete, how to lead, how to push past limits when no one was watching. But what happens when the season ends, when the uniform comes off and the identity shifts? Welcome to the Beyond Her Game podcast. I'm Tori Barker, former Division I softball player and founder of Beyond Her Game. Athletes are trained to pursue excellence and lead under pressure, but no one prepares us for life when the game changes. This podcast is for female athletes building what comes next. We talk about business, brand, money, mindset, and identity beyond sports. The things no one teaches you in the locker room. Because the skills you built through sports don't disappear. They're just the beginning. Welcome to Beyond Her Game. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited and looking forward to sharing this conversation with you. Today, my guest is Antoine Burrell from B.E Collective Plus. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Tori, how's it going?
Good. Well, I'd like to jump right in because we have an amazing conversation we're going to have. So I'd love for you to talk about you've built a career in the sports industry, but I'd love to go back to where your relationship with sports started growing up.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Taking it back. It started as a kid. My dad played sports, right? So like I grew up going to my grandma's house and seeing like his trophies and all those kind of things. And funny enough, I remember when I was really little, I used to ask like, "Hey, can I have these? Like they look cool." And he was like, "No, like you have to go get your own." And I was like, "All right, challenge accepted."
Yeah, I love that.
And I think that's kind of like the origin story, I think, of me in sports. But no, I played everything kind of, growing up, t-ball, baseball a little bit, football. I wrestled and played basketball. Wasn't good at either one of those. But no, like I just, I was a really active kid, like always at, sports camps, all those kind of things. And then I also had the misfortune of tearing my ACL twice in high school. So sports streams ended relatively earlier than expected, to say the least. But no, I think that also it's just a love for the game. Anybody that's ever like really like fell in love with the game, any sport it is. I think when you have that, you just can't get away. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what led me to going to school to study sports management. And that way I could still kind of be around like what I knew and what I loved, and just finding joy in the business side. And I think now as an adult and a professional, it feels like it's almost like a new sport.
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur in this industry in particular. So it's still got that competitive nature.
Yeah, I love that story because I think we can all relate to that, especially everyone listening to this podcast. And I often talk about the impact that sports has on your life and your adulthood and your career. So, how did sports shape you, maybe from the competition side or resilience, into, the work that you do today?
Oh yeah, 100%. I would say the biggest, most impactful was definitely the resilience. And so like when I say I tore my ACL twice, so we're in high school for 4 years. So I tore it my freshman year.
Oh,
Which you first get to high school and you're like, oh, I'm finally playing high school ball. So that was a joy. So then it was just like, as a freshman in high school, then you had that question like, are you still gonna play? Are you ever gonna play again? Because that's like a very quintessential kind of moment
yeah.
coming from middle school and high school as an athlete. And so then that was kind of where the beginning of that resilience was kind of born. It's just like, I'm gonna give it another shot. All these other athletes that have made it, of course, when you're 14 years old, they tell you about all the pros that,
Of course.
had these injuries and bounce back and all of those kind of things. And so, yeah, so now it's just like, like this is part of the game. People get hurt, and it's just like you keep going through it. And so I think that was the kind of the beginning of that like kind of perseverance and going through that whole recovery process.
Yeah.
But my team was so welcoming, and I think that's what also made me love it. Like my coach was like, "No, you're still part of this team.
Love it.
Like you're still on the sidelines with us, at practice with us. Practice was rehab for me, practice for the guys,
Yep.
all of those kind of things. So I think that resilience came, but also that like family atmosphere that comes with being on a team, and having that support also was a part of it.
Mm.
And then, fast forward to junior year when, I'm bounced back, looking forward to having like, my big season, training all summer, all those kind of things. And then in gym class playing pickup basketball, I
Oh,
go up for a layup, come down wrong, and then, back to square one.
was it
And
the
even at
same
that
knee?
point,
The same
yeah,
ACL?
same
Yeah.
knee.
Oh gosh.
Yep. Oh yeah. So like when I came down, I knew something was wrong.
Mm.
But then, I went to wrestling practice that day. Was gonna power through it because once you go down one season, you're like, no, like you're gonna have to carry me off to tell me I'm going through this again.
Right.
But that almost happened. Because
Oh.
we were at practice. So that's when I go to the trainer. She's like, all right, might have been not as bad as you think, but go see a doctor. Doctor comes in, tells me in the doctor's office, and I just like broke down. Like that was the one where I felt that emotional
Mm.
attachment to an injury.
Yeah.
Um, but then I think from there again, it was that same kind of crossroads. And it's like, well, you've done it once before. So now like kind of that resilience and like kind of just like, you are capable of getting through it. And so I was just like, I've only got 1 year left. At this point, like
Yeah.
college dreams are shot. So when it's ACL number two, it's like so at this point, like you might as well just give it one last ride. Give it
Yeah.
all you got. If it makes it, it makes it. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Take your
But
shot,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. And so I think that was kind of really what built my level of resilience, but also
Mm.
just being an athlete and being competitive in nature. It was always like at this point, it was no longer against the person across from me, but it was me.
Yeah.
When you go through that recovery process and all of those kind of things. And this is all happening, before I'm 18 years old.
Right.
So,
You're
so
learning
with
some
that,
big life skills early on.
yeah, exactly. So I can't say like, oh, I was like, this philosophical about it then. It was just more so of like, I want to quit on my terms at this point. Like if I know like certain dreams are a dream deferred, at least like make the best of it.
Yeah.
But I think I just carried that on to just like resilience within from that point, going into college and like career and professionally, like at that point, like yeah, I've had a dream deferred. I know what that experience feels like, but I've also,
Yeah.
pushed through and seen the other side and like gotten back to where I was or stronger from another setback. And so
Yeah.
I think just kind of going through those things early in life really helped push me to kind of build that within my character.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, we talk about this all the time, how so many lessons and qualities you learn from sports carry over into your adulthood and into your career, parenting, community leadership, whatever it might be. It's amazing when you really sit back and think about it, everything that sports can do for you. So I love that story so much. I'd love to transition into your company, BE Collective Plus. And
Mhm.
what led you to focus on NIL education? Because I know that's one of the aspects of what you do, and I think that's really an interesting topic right now for athletes. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that too, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So Be Collective Plus, it is a little bit of a passion project. And so I'm a product of an HBC. I went to Hampton University. And so, going and having that HBCU experience is very near and dear to my heart. But also that has a lot of levels and layers for myself individually. I'm actually a fourth generation HBCU graduate. And so, like on one side of my family, my grandmother's father first went, and then my grandmother went,
Oh,
my father went, I went. Me and my dad both went to Hampton. My wife went to Hampton. We met there. Her mom went there. So the roots and the
amazing.
ties there
Yeah.
are just really, really strong. And then I've just grown up in the HBCU environment my entire life. And so at different schools and kind of just different ways, different homecomings and all that kind of stuff. So that's just a part of like I think what makes who I am.
Yeah.
And then bringing that to sports. And so, working in the industry for, 10 plus years in sponsorship activation, partnership marketing at both the college and the pro level, I was
Yeah.
already speaking the language of the brands, that were marketing and, advertising through sports, whether it was college or pro.
Yeah.
And so it was a easy kind of transition to then kind of go into the NIL space when essentially now we just kind of honed in on a more microscopic level of what was already happening.
Yeah.
Because NIL kind of opened those new opportunities. And so I thought it was a way to kind of leverage the skill set I had developed, over 10 years, but then put that with the passion that I have of who I think kind of shapes myself in a community that I know firsthand is traditionally underserved, under-resourced.
Right.
And so to kind of bring those two powers together to create something that could, really be impactful in this new landscape. I think NIL really shifted everything. Nobody
Yeah.
kind of knew what to do. And so with that, it was a great equalizer if we'll ever get one, for, other schools and other, opportunities and communities to come
Yeah.
from the whole new regime.
Yeah. So what determines an athlete's value beyond their performance?
Yeah, I think when you look at NIL and the marketing aspect of it, businesses, yes, if you have the top athlete, that's great because they probably are a more notable name or recognizable name. But some of this is at the end of the day, like athletes that have a personality, that have a presence,
Yeah.
that have some form of identity beyond their sport. Like the age-old sales addict, like people buy from people they like.
Yeah.
So if I don't know anything about you other than you play on the team,
Yeah.
you're no different than, Joe Schmo walking, across the library or something.
Yeah.
But I think those people that are able to kind of show their personalities and that can show their interests, the things that they do outside of their sport, I think those are, kind of cliche, but also at the same time, it's cliche for a reason.
Yeah.
Is that like, that's what resonates with people and what builds community is kind of, people being able to express themselves.
Yeah. And so for these student athletes specifically, and I'd love to, talk about female student athletes specifically. Do you see that that's more of an emerging market now? Is it pretty equal male female athletes when it comes to NIL? What does that look like in the space?
So I think we always see the headlines that it's going to the, top quarterback at the biggest P4 school is getting the biggest deals, right?
Yeah.
I think we see that trend, and I'm pretty sure that may not go anywhere anytime soon. As some of those kind of things shake out. But also, when you really get into the weeds of it, a hot take that we say at a lot of our different events, myself, our speakers, our partners, all kind of resonate on is that female student athletes are actually better performing
Mm,
when it comes to this NIL space
yeah.
because they're more engaging. Like it's just really kind of cut and dry and simple. It's like
Yeah.
they're more engaging on social media. Like they comment with their friends in the comment section. Like they're talking to the people that leave comments on their posts. They're
Yeah.
liking, they're resharing. Their feeds are like showing their life, what they're doing. The old sayings, phone eats first when they're going out, and all the vacation pics and oh, day in the life on campus or out with my team or all of just these different things. And that's just,
Yeah.
the culture that we live in, right? Like, younger Gen Z. I'm a millennial, so like I don't want to say younger people, like I'm too old, but you know what I mean? Like like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, like they are the social media generation. So like this is just their norm. Like they were
Yeah.
doing this with or without NIL. And so now when you bring that culture to an environment like NIL, it naturally is going to yield better results.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the guys and the male athletes we see, I'll post the cool picture from media day, or the one that Getty Images got of the big game, like
Yeah.
what I mean. Like we'll post those, but then there's three other posts on your page, and then not really engaged. But like,
Right.
how is that going to sell a product for a
Mm,
business?
yeah.
And that's kind of that disconnect is that like that itself, like it is cool amongst your friends, but it's also not necessarily marketable. It's not
Yeah.
something that is going to sell or promote a product if it doesn't look like you rarely use your page or like
Right.
you're not really engaged. And that could be because, you dropped 30 in the game on the basketball court or ran for 300 yards, and that's probably why.
Yeah.
But, it's just kind of actions have consequences. You got to kind of pick, which space you want to, really put your focus in or get the resources to compensate, right?
Right.
Everybody only has 24 hours in a day. So, if your focus is the field or the court, then you got to find the resources to supplement the
Mm.
time that you can't spend on a social media or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just some of those things that kind of how the game kind of plays out naturally sometimes.
Yeah. Now, I'm so curious. Is NIL available to any athlete, right? Do you have to be a star player? Obviously, you'd be more marketable as a star player, right? More
Mm-hmm.
influence. Um, do you have to be at a Division 1 school? Like, talk a little bit about that. Like, I feel like maybe there are athletes out there who don't know or don't see that there's an opportunity for them. They maybe think that it's out of touch or out of reach.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, NIL is definitely available to, all student athletes, really. I mean, like, funny, we always think like, oh, they got to be a D1 athlete or go to the biggest school or, play the
Yeah.
biggest sport. But if you get down and go back a couple years now, but like, the NAIA allowed NIL not long before, but just briefly before the NCAA did.
Mm.
From a contextual standpoint of like across the board
Yeah.
available for all athletes. And I think what ends up happening is we saw the rise of the collectives, and we saw, we saw Shador Sanders in college. We saw
Yeah.
Angel Reese in college while this was happening in real time. And I
Yeah.
think like, that kind of thing really skewed our perspectives of NIL and thinking like, oh, well,
Mm.
I'm not that, so it must not be for me.
Right.
But I mean, meanwhile, like this is marketing, this is business, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
another channel of digital marketing, of social media marketing.
Mm.
And if you can understand those concepts, then you can really wrap your head around NIL and how to take advantage from regardless of what stage you're at, right? Like if you
Yeah.
play golf, if you're a bowler, if you are, a gymnast or, you run track, like the non-revenue generating sports, but like you probably have a level of access that other people
Yeah.
don't have. Like you have an experience that most people may not have as a student
Hmm.
athlete, regardless of like what your sport. Your day may look completely different from another person's day, but also
Yeah.
like what are all the different things. I love using golf as like the greatest example of NIL that people don't really talk about, right? So like you think about pro golfers.
Yeah.
The hat has three or four logos on it. The polo has a logo on the chest. The gloves have a logo on them. The clubs have a
So
logo on them
true.
by a
Yeah.
brand. So does the bag. So the caddy's wearing something. So are the shoes. So are the pants. Like every aspect of the sport.
Mm.
And then like a prime example of that, like what does that look like tangibly? Like, yeah, you just listed all these things. Look at Tiger Woods. You look
Mm.
at everything is Nike.
Yeah.
He's not gonna wear, these different brands, but like that's because that's a brand partnership.
Right.
And so like if you look at it contextually, like Nike's the big one, Tiger's, one of the goats. Like that's what it looks like at a granular level, but then
Right.
break it down and simplify it. Like if you play golf, you wear a hat, you wear a polo, you wear gloves,
Yeah.
you have a bag, you have a
Yep.
certain set of gloves, and then apply that to any sport.
Mm.
I believe you played softball, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure you had certain routines. You had certain gloves that you probably like to use, certain bats that you probably found that you like more versus
Absolutely.
others, like throughout your career, and like just literally apply that to whatever sport that you play, and then like who makes those products, and then
Yeah.
that's your audience, and that's how you can easily kind of connect the dots.
What are some of the other expectations of these athletes outside of like the simplest of wearing or using a bat or equipment for these brands? What are some of the other expectations of these athletes who are getting these NIL deals?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a matter of posting. And there will be specific instructions. A lot of times with these deals, the brands will give you exactly what they're looking for. So, they may be running a special promotional campaign that's going to
Mm,
run between certain dates.
yep.
March Madness right now. I'm sure that there will be brands activating right now during March Madness. And so there's going to be some content that they probably worked with creators on to say, hey, these air dates don't begin until the tournament starts or something like
Right.
that. Or like, this is only that you need to post X amount of times or these things or like this with this product using this caption during this week from March 19th to March 24th or whatever have you. But like it's those types of details within the deliverables that really make up like what the posting is, the purpose of it, the how you do it, going about it. Even the like the edits and the changes when you have to like, hey, send us the review before it
Right.
goes live.
Yeah.
And these are all things that the brands do to protect their product and their image and identity, but also that athletes need to recognize as part of the process.
Mm,
It's not necessarily like trying to change you or change your like content,
right.
but it is part of like this is part of the game. If they're going to pay you to promote their product, they also want to see it done in a particular way that makes their product look good,
Yeah.
so that it can drive revenue.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and to the point of revenue, what about compensation, right? So you hear, obviously in media, we hear about the huge, huge NIL deals, but like, what are their expectations that maybe their parameters of, most people are earning X number of dollars, and then you've got the like 1% who are earning millions of dollars. Like, what does it look like in that arena of the compensation for the athletes?
Oh yeah, the discrepancy is huge.
I can
So like
imagine.
the average deal, I think it was like last year or maybe within the last 2 years, the average deal used to be somewhere around I think it was like 70 to 80 bucks or something like that, like per deal. And I'm sure that's obviously changed and grown
Yeah.
exponentially by now, but it really all depends on the deliverables. There's some, that I've seen deals where, they'll offer $100, right? Like I'm going to send you, a free shirt and, would love for you to
Yeah.
post it. Give us a reel, tag us in it.
Yeah.
Here's the shirt, need you to wear it and $100 for that kind of
Yeah.
post.
As a
We've
college
seen,
athlete, you're like, heck yeah, I'll take $100,
yeah,
right?
right, right. Well, I don't know, not in this era now. They're
That's
getting
true.
paid the big
Maybe
bucks.
back in my day.
Right.
$100 went a
Oh
lot
yeah.
further back in my day.
Right, same here. But no, like you see like those kind of things, but then you see them as big as like, hey, we're gonna run this campaign. I need you to post 3 different times. These are the products we're gonna send you, or go online and pick your favorite of our products that you would like to promote. This
Yeah.
campaign will run, for this month, and we need 3 reels, and I need you to send them in, and we need to edit and feedback and like 2 rounds of edits before they go live. Make sure the
Yeah.
captions correct. All of these, and those can be for 5+ figure deals.
Yes. Yeah.
We've seen deals that have been in a couple thousands for student athletes that have been female student athletes, non-revenue generating student athletes, who have had the social media profile just as heavy as a content creator does.
Yeah.
And so, because of that, it warrants content creator type opportunities. And then, when you happen to be a student athlete, that is just disguised NIL.
Yep.
They're literally kind of like, squares a rectangle, rectangle's a square type of thing. At that point, if a student athlete is a creator and has the following and influence of a creator, but they're still a student athlete, then
Yeah.
those brand partnerships and NIL are one and the same,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what it is.
Yep. Yeah. So I'd love to wrap this up and have you, for the female student athlete that might be listening to this episode, which hopefully they are, what are 3 things that they should start doing immediately to start building their brand?
um, 3 things: assess where you are, find out where you are first. and then assess where you are, identify where your strengths are, and then showcase it, highlight them. I think those three things give a good foundation. I wouldn't jump right into post every day or post three times a day or anything like that. It's really identifying your story. Identify what your story is and how do you tell it. How do you showcase it? How do you like? It's what makes you unique. And you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. Like literally it's whatever your thing
Yeah.
is. And so it's like assessing where you are. Like, what do you do? What are your likes and your dislikes? What are the things that like, that make you unique? And then decide how you want to tell that story and like, how you want to leverage that. Be more than just your sport. The different things that you do in your life, your hobby, your family, your extracurriculars, all of that good stuff. And then you just go about telling that story. You do got to put yourself out there. You do got to be seen. You got to be visible. I guess I could throw a bonus one in, like be reachable.
Mm-hmm.
Brands have to be able to find a way to contact you.
Yeah.
And if all they see is your Instagram, it could be phenomenal. But if there's no email, if there's no contact, if there's no way to reach you, then like you'll never get deals because they'll be in the abyss.
Yep.
So I guess that'd be a bonus tip, even though you asked for three.
Yeah, I think my bonus to that would be responsive. Be responsive, right? So
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
reachable, you've got a presence, you need to also be responsive. So,
Yes.
Antoine, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your knowledge on this subject. I think, like I said, it's such a buzzing topic right now, and what you do to educate the athletes, especially in the HBCU arena, is so amazing. And so I just appreciate having you as a guest. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more or they want to find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow us on Instagram at the HBCU Collective, all one word. There you can see, the different events and the different things we do across different campuses and schools. You can also reach me via email at the info@bcollectiveplus.com. It's probably the easiest one that forwards directly to my email that I get access to. But email or Instagram, or I'm also on LinkedIn, Antoine Burrell on LinkedIn. So in any of those platforms, send me a DM. Always open to chat.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being a guest.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.